Well, welcome back to the New York Mets podcast, where we are talking about spring training. The Mets are down 2-7 to the Cardinals today, and we've got superfan Joe Cheung with us today.
Hello. Coming in from Port St. Lucie, which is on the way to Miami, actually. But hello, we're just here to troll Christy.
And that'll be the beginning of the podcast. So there we go.
And can I already fast forward?
Well, hello, and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly.
Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast to help you cruise a little smarter. And I'd like to welcome back to the show all the way down in Florida. How are you doing today, Christy?
I am well, Steve. How are you?
Not too bad. We're just going to jump into this one because we have one of our favorite guests on. It's been a while. It's been a moment since he has been on. Christy.
But he likes it when we talk about the weather and then we don't air the show for 5 months later.
Yeah, it's like super hot here. I'm in my American flag tank top, ready to celebrate July 4th. I hope you all are just ready to celebrate July 4th with me, celebrate our independence in America.
Well, welcome back to the show, Joe Cheung of Disney Deciphered. He's also a huge Mets fan. He's a dad. He's a soccer coach, I believe. And he was also an award-winning travel agent this year. Welcome back to the show, Joe.
Thanks so much for having me back. It's been too long since I've been on a cruise and too long since I've been on a podcast with you all. Although, Christy, you were on Disney Deciphered talking about Disney Cruise Line 101 after the pandemic. So thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome. And I would love to come back anytime. And we did invite you, and then we never set up the recording after your Alaskan cruise.
Steve's fault.
Excuse me. Sorry. I know coughing on a podcast is rude, but
I will totally take the blame for that. We had like about 1 million people go to Alaska last year. We're going to try something completely different this year. We're going to try Roundtable because there's like another 1 million going up there again this year. So we'll see how that turns out. But yeah, that was totally my fault, Joe.
No, it's totally fine. Happy to be back on talking to you all, and glad we could make this work out. I was joking. I love to joke with Christy about, just 2 weeks ago or 2 episodes ago, as we are recording this episode, Christy and your guest, you were talking about a hurricane hitting Florida. And I was like, that happened quite a while ago. Although your episode with Steve from Tampa last week obviously was recorded much more recently. So I don't know how you choose when you edit it, but it always cracks me up when we hear podcasts. I mean, we should record the Alaska podcast now, and then you could just release it. And no one will know when we recorded it.
It's true.
It's all very true.
Exactly. Did he go in 2022 or 2023? I don't even know. Well, I want to give a huge shout out to your podcast. For those of you who have not listened, I know a lot of our listeners do listen to yours and Leslie's podcast, Disney Deciphered. But if you're looking for a parks podcast, matter of fact, you guys cover all things Disney, but a lot of emphasis on Walt Disney World and Disneyland. And I love the fact that you guys keep it short and sweet, to the point, and a lot of information packed into 30 minutes, unlike ours, where we can ramble on for quite a while. So if you haven't given it a chance to take a listen, make sure you go over to Disney Deciphered. You can find it wherever you find your podcasts. So let's just jump into this one, Christy.
Okay.
So, Joe, you went on the Wonder last year, obviously, to Alaska, which we did not cover, but maybe that will come out again at some point here in the near future. But this time you guys go on the Disney Dream. What made you guys decide to pick this cruise? And who cruises with you?
So we're a family of 5, myself, my wife, and then we have 3 kids, 2 girls and a boy, 10, 7, and 5. The boy is in the middle. Yes, so we went on the Wonder last August to Alaska, and that was a great trip. My son really got into cruise ships. In fact, I think I've mentioned this on Disney Deciphered, or maybe I haven't, but he got super into the Titanic after we went on the Wonder.
That's good.
Yes, so he's like the foremost expert amongst 7-year-olds on the Titanic and her sister ships. Did you know that they have a sister ship? Oh my gosh, I already forgot the name, but another one of the Titanic's sister ships sank. So just not Disney Cruise Line quality ships back then. And I think the statute of limitations for joking about that, well, I don't know. It was a tragedy, so I shouldn't joke about it.
I feel like this is something you would send me a message about. Why are you talking about a sinking ship? Like,
I'm a terrible travel agent. What can I say? Talk about cruise ship sicking. But yes, to answer your actual question and not to go on a gigantic tangent about 100-year-old ships, I had always heard that doing a Disneyland and Sea trip was a lot of fun. And conceptually, it makes a ton of sense. Go to Walt Disney World. It is super exhausting and tiring. And yes, even though the whole reason why Leslie and I started the podcast is to make life easier for people, making life easier at Walt Disney World doesn't mean it's easy. It just means that, it's a little bit easier for you, like you said at the beginning, making your travel a little bit easier, cruising a little bit easier. And that's what we try to do with Walt Disney World. So it was an exhausting trip. And the concept is you're super tired after going to Disney World. Then you go on a cruise and you get to do nothing and just relax. So I wanted to try that out and see how that went. We could have done the Wish out of Port Canaveral for 3 nights, but I really didn't want to do a 3-night cruise. Like, if I'm trying to relax after Walt Disney World vacation, I'm not going to go on a new ship for only 3 nights where I'm going to try to pack in everything. So, the dream was sailing out of Miami. It was a 4-night cruise. We'd only have to miss 1 day of school. My wife and I are both teachers, and of course our kids are in school as well. We'd only have to miss 1 day of school. So it totally worked out for our schedule, and that's what we went for.
Okay, so 2 things. It's the Britannic was the sister ship, and it sunk in the Aegean Sea November 21st, 1916, just for people that are wondering about that. And just out of curiosity, was the Dream quite a bit cheaper to go on as well? I mean, for people's kind of, what we hear is the Wish generally tends to be fairly expensive these days. How did the Dream compare?
Well, we haven't mentioned that I sailed in concierge, so nothing was cheap.
Okay.
So we'll start right there. Nothing is cheap. No discounts at all for concierge ever. No travel agent discounts, no guaranteed discounts, nothing. No 10% placeholder discount. But I did check the prices for the Wish and the Dream, and they were, as you said, Steve, pretty comparable in the sense that a 3-night on the Wish was only like a tiny bit cheaper than a 4-night on the Dream, or really comparable. So put that all together, like, I was not interested. When we try the Wish, it might end up being a 3-nighter, but I don't think of that as a relaxing cruise vacation. I think of that as almost like, if it's your first time on a ship, you really want to see everything, and that's not relaxing at all, which was not the point of this particular cruise.
So you did a land portion at Walt Disney World before your cruise, as we discussed. You pretty well discussed it at length on your podcast. So you can insert that podcast number for us once I get to my question. And people should check it out. Disney Deciphered. It's really entertaining. It was really fun to listen to. But you did the Up Close with Rhinos tour, which is something that I've been really interested in. And anybody who watches the making of the Disney's Animal Kingdom would be into this type of event or experience. So I guess I would like to hear more about that experience. If you felt like it was worth it, if you could just explain briefly what it involved.
So Up Close with Rhinos is a 1-hour tour that you can book at Animal Kingdom. And it's similar, or not similar to, but the way you book it is similar to Wild Africa Trek. If you are on Kilimanjaro safaris, you will sometimes see that there's rope bridges above the safari. And every once in a while, you'll see people walking there. And so Up Close with Rhinos is a much shorter tour. Wild Africa Trek is 3 hours. My wife and my daughter did Wild Africa Trek last year. They loved it. It's like Kilimanjaro safaris, but up close. Up Close with Rhinos is just a rhino focused tour. You check in at a desk by Kilimanjaro Safaris, the tourist desk, and then they actually take you backstage. And one thing I really loved, and I said this on the episode, it's 263, by the way. In the back, when you go backstage, I'm at the point where I'm like a Disney nerd, not a super Disney nerd in the sense that I know all the history, but I love knowing how things work backstage. And so seeing the cast members backstage was super cool. And apparently there was a snow cone or shave ice, some sort of frozen treat food truck set up back there that the cast members were just hanging out at, either on their break or going into their shifts. So I thought that was really cool. And then we took a van backstage to the back of the rhino pad. And so there we actually met 2 rhinos, Jow and Milo, mother and son. It was cool. We had 3 of the cast members who work with the rhinos regularly talk to us about them and talk to us about rhinos and conservation, that kind of message like Animal Kingdom normally does. And then we got to pet the baby rhino, which was a lot of fun and really cute and cool. And it was a short experience, but I thought it was really worthwhile. And I think, it was super busy. It was so crowded at Walt Disney World. Genie Plus sold out for the first time ever at Walt Disney World for 2 days, the Sunday and Monday. It was just exhausting in a lot of ways, even when we were using Genie Plus efficiently and using all the kind of skills that we talk about on Disney Deciphered. Being able to do a tour, and it was only like a dozen of us or so, it was so restful to be back there. And on top of all that, the tour was really cool too. So it was like a nice hour in the day where we weren't like crammed in with people, and the tour is really cool too. We really loved it.
Yeah, this is on my list to do for sure. So obviously you need to have a park ticket for Animal Kingdom, the theme park, but definitely would be something unique. I think most of our listeners are probably already big Disney people. And so they've probably experienced so much at Walt Disney World. So this is just a great way to do something a little bit different. And it's super reasonably priced, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So it's $45 per person before tax, which I actually, when you think about Disney prices, it is pretty fair. Obviously it's more than you would pay at any other place in the world for anything, but that's Disney, and we love Disney. And yeah, I really love, my kids' favorite park is Animal Kingdom, and they love everything about it. And so giving them this chance to really get up close and ask, cast members are always great, and the kids have all these good questions, like the Titanic, but except for about rhinos. Kids want to know everything. And so that was another awesome part about the tour. Not only my kids, but the other kids on the tour were asking a lot of great questions.
I love that they're so inclusive with that, as far as, bringing the kids into it. We did the nighttime Africa safari at Animal Kingdom Lodge with our kids when they were younger. And that was just a really cool experience too. Like you said, really, the cast members really made a lot of it as far as imparting the information on how the animals are taken care of, where they sleep at night, all the different kind of stuff. We got a pin at the end. Did you guys get anything cool like that?
They gave us like our name tags were, I don't know, there was something special about them. So we got to keep that, and that was cool. Although I hear the Caring for Giants, there's an even better kind of keepsake that you get. I forget what it is, but they were mentioning it because someone on the tour had done Caring for Giants as well. And while we're at it, like Wild Africa Trek, which is much more expensive, that was like $300 per person. But again, like unforgettable experience for my wife and my daughter. They got like water bottles and, their necklaces and lanyards. And the other nice thing about Wild Africa Trek is all the photos they take are included. And it's like you're on a safari and they're taking photos of you. Of course, it's a Disney safari, but still we have a lot of awesome photos from that tour.
Well, was there anything else you wanted to touch on as far as the land vacation goes before we jump into the cruise, Joe? Or Christy, that you wanted to touch on?
No, I would like to reiterate that aside from extended evening hours, which we did the night before we drove down to Miami, just myself and my two older kids, it was a lot. It was probably the most crowded that I've seen Walt Disney World post-pandemic. And, I go quite a bit. I haven't been at Christmas, but it did actually, because Genie Plus sold out, I think it was more crowded than Christmas was. That really set things up nicely to have a relaxing cruise, because we were exhausted. We were wiped after the 5 nights at Disney World.
So let's get to Miami. I know the answer to this question, but let's tell our listeners, how from Walt Disney World did you get there? Did you come in the day before? Where did you stay, etc.?
So depends when you release this episode. If you heard Steve from Tampa last week, he just talked about how driving to Miami is terrible. And Chrissy, I like pinged you before we went down, and I was like, hey, can you give me some tips for driving down to Miami? And I will repeat what you said, which is when you get close to Miami, use the express lanes that you can use with, nowadays, like Easy Pass, Sun Pass, they're all the same. They're all like integrated. So we had ours connected to our rental car, and we did that, which saved quite a bit of time. Driving down Miami, it's like a very brutal and boring drive. So this was kind of like the end of our land portion. It was tiring. We were staying at the beach club. So we went to Stormalong Bay in the morning, which was nice. And the kids hung out at Stormalong Bay until about 12. We got them to let us check out at 12:30. So we all quickly showered. And then at 12:30, that's when we started making our way to Miami. Actually, maybe we had hung out for a little while. But we didn't get to Miami until like 4 or 5. And it was just a really tiring, boring drive. Can't wait till the Bright Line opens.
Same. That's going to be a game changer for getting there. And it's just like, I don't know about your drive, but, and I think I just had this conversation with Steve from Tampa, but the number of accidents that are on the turnpike are ridiculous.
I
It is
heard
a
you say
straight,
that.
boring road.
Yeah.
There's literally nothing to crash into.
Okay, I literally finished that episode like 2 hours ago, and word for word, that is what you said to Steve.
Okay, I'm gonna get some new lines, but for real.
So, and I listened to you saying that, and I was laughing because I actually did not see a single accident.
How
on the
did
way
you get
down.
that lucky?
So I don't know. Maybe
never-
because it was a Wednesday. So our cruise actually left on a Thursday. That's why we only had to miss one day of school. 4-night cruise, getting back on Monday. Yeah, it was pretty good. Oh, and then I should also say that when we got to Miami proper, we were staying at the Hyatt Regency Miami, and that last, I don't even think it was half a mile. I think it was like a last quarter mile. Took us like 15 minutes to get into the parking lot and stuff like that. And by the time we got there, I was returning out of Hertz that was a block away, but it closes at 5 p.m. So I had to park the car overnight, which I mean, this was the plan. But navigating around that 2 blocks was super confusing. But at that point, that was kind of like the end of the stress, except for one tiny thing on the cruise. And so that land and sea strategy did work out pretty well.
So staying at the Hyatt Regency in Miami, how did you guys get to the cruise port the next day since you turned the car in?
After we turned the car in, and it was a really nice property, a little bit dated, but actually the weirdest thing, I don't know if I've told anyone this, but when I walked in, apparently there was like 3 conferences staying there at the same time, and they all met to go to dinner at the same time. There was like 700 people in the lobby when I got in there. And so I guess that was the end of the stress. And then they all filed out while we were checking in. And then it was quiet, and I didn't see that many people for the rest of the time. But yes, I have status with Hyatt, and I contacted the general manager before we got there with some questions. And the Hyatt Regency Miami was nice enough. They like sent me a voucher for something called Alto, which is a rideshare program that, unlike Uber and Lyft, their drivers are salaried, and apparently it's being piloted in a few cities like Miami, Las Vegas, Silicon Valley. I got like the whole 4-in-1 for our driver, but they gave that to us. So we took that to the port. So it was basically rideshare, but it was Alto, which was the new experience that I had. They said that prices are comparable to if you were going to do an Uber Black anyway, or maybe the one below Black. I don't know. I never actually rarely do rideshare. So,
well, what kind of car were you in?
Oh, it was like a nice SUV. And oh my gosh, my son could not stop saying, "Oh, free water, free water. Just free water." Remember when the Uber and Lyft drivers used to all give you free water? I forgot about that until we got into our Alto. But yeah, he just kept, he was super into it.
Was that location that you stayed at in Miami, was it close to the port? Like, were you know how some of those hotels you could see it, or was it a short walk to that, like Brickell Street?
It was not close enough to like walk there. I Google mapped it, and I don't think I could see the port. It was over one of the, I don't know if you'd call it a canal or river that's going through the city, but actually our window had a view of the drawbridge. And so my kids were like really into that. They spent like an hour of our 12 hours in the hotel just watching that drawbridge go up and down. And I think that's part of the reason why the traffic is so bad. It was about 10-15 minute drive. It was pretty easy. And if I'm being honest, I wasn't super paying attention to where we were going, but the Dream was sailing out of Terminal C. So the driver got us to Terminal C very quickly. And because we were concierge, we got there at about 11:05, 11:10. We generally like to board as late as possible because we hate the mess that, you know, Cabanas or Marceline Market or even the sit down dining, which is a little bit better. It's just a mess getting on the ship. So we generally like to board late, but because we were concierge, we decided to board, you know, as soon as possible this time.
Okay, last year you guys were on the Wonder, so back on a fantasy or Dream class ship. What was it like getting back on the Dream Joy since you'd sailed on her before?
Yeah, I mean, we hadn't sailed on her for like 5 or 6 years. My youngest daughter was still breastfeeding at the time, so it's at least 4.5 years ago. I mean, it was that my wife was like, "Oh, that whole cruise was a blur," which, you know, props to the moms out there. It's 2 days after International Women's Day, so props to all the women out there. But getting onto the Dream was, I don't want to say it was a dream, but I got to say that it's really tough to compare. It's apples to oranges because we were in concierge. I was joking with Leslie. We were talking about it yesterday. The concierge line at check-in actually took longer than if we had gotten to the regular line because we got there so early. But after that, it was super smooth. They put us in a separate area of the terminal, and then we were one of the first dozen families on board. And I think because we were earlier and, it's all the concierge people boarding first, the line and the atrium where you're getting greeted and they're saying like, oh, welcome Cheung family and all that. It was even more officers and characters than normal. And there was like they were in two lines funneling us straight to Royal Palace for lunch. And so it was like much more of a, I guess, to do than when we got on the Wonder. But generally, we wouldn't like the to do, but because it got us right to Royal Palace and we didn't have to worry about any other crowds and things like that, it was pretty awesome to do. I will say that on the Wonder, we boarded at like 2 p.m. It was perfect because there was like no one there. It was very chill.
That's our go-to time now to at least wait till afternoon to get on the ships because it's a lot nicer experience going through the terminals. So, Joe, this is your first time sailing concierge. We're going to talk a little bit more about that at the end, or we're going to kind of concentrate on your experiences you and the family had on. But what did you take advantage of as far as concierge, as far as setting you up for the sailing?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing that we took advantage of was the early booking window. And frankly, we don't have to worry about the early booking window. We just emailed the concierge team with what we wanted to get: Remy dinner, Paulo brunch, a cabana, which we were going to try for the first time. Luckily, our friends ended up sailing with us. They decided like 5 weeks before, so we were able to split the cabana with them, which was much better on the wallet and more fun. And so those are the main things. And then I will say, we can talk about not concierge stuff, but getting on and off the ship, I think, was a huge part of the value of concierge. My wife, so talking about the first time that we were on the Dream, that was the first time my wife had ever been on Disney Cruise Line. And that was only my second cruise ever. And so I was like, oh, let's go up to cabanas. And we were still like, I don't know why the blogs still say, oh, bring your swimsuits and have the kids ready to go swimming. Like, I do not subscribe to that advice. If that works for your family, that's great.
Well, why though? Let's talk about that, because on your podcast, you mentioned something about that, which I'm with you, but let's tell the listeners, because they are all still saying that, and all these cruise groups have your kids come in their swimsuits.
I mean, to me, it's two things. Like, number one, and I got to admit that, it's first world problems. This is not our first cruise, not our first Disney cruise. And if you've been on a few times, like, you kind of know what the pools are like. There's no rush. And the other thing is, on a 4-night cruise, which is still a little bit short, you're going to have plenty of time. And we can talk later. Like, we got the pool to ourselves relatively. It wasn't kid soup at times when we were in it. I know, Christy, you always call the pools kid soup because they're totally undersized and they're full of kids and it doesn't seem safe at all, although it's only 2 feet of water. When we went on the Dream that first time and we had our kids like ready to swim and stuff like that, it was like we got up there, and because we brought our swimsuits, we had more stuff with us. It was 12 o'clock. It was August when we traveled then. It was like so hot. My wife couldn't find a table. We were all super sweaty, and she was, she does not like big crowds. I mean, this is pre-pandemic, but I can't even imagine now, but pre-pandemic, she already didn't like big crowds. And it was like, cabanas was a mess. Like, you have to waiting for a line, and there was nowhere, like, we couldn't find a table. Like, we finally found a table next to the splash pad for the toddlers and stuff. And so it was just such a not great experience. It was just so stressful and crowded. And that's why we board at 1:30, 2 p.m. now. We've only done 4 cruises, but still, like, that is going to be our go-to time. And so being able to take advantage of getting on and going straight to lunch just for the concierge guests, we really took advantage of that. But other than that, before the cruise, it was just getting our ducks in a row. Like I said, Remy, Paulo, cabana.
Let's stick with the kids then. You're talking about the pools and stuff. One of the things that we haven't talked a lot about is just the kids clubs, and your kids are the perfect age for the lab and the club. So how did that work for you guys on this cruise, and kind of talk about any strategies you used throughout the 4-day?
I'm already laughing because I was anticipating this question, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say this in, like, I guess, gentlest way or most appropriate way possible. Okay. The kids clubs are not made for introverted children. Let's just say that if you are of Asian descent, there is a good chance that the kids clubs aren't as appealing to your family's kids as they are to families of other descents kids. My friend just got actually our friend just got off the Dream today, and her kids are just a year or two younger than our younger kids. Hated the kids club. She said she couldn't get them in them at all. And that's what our kids were like when they were younger. Now our kids will tolerate it. And so it's just funny that not everyone's kids. And I decided this needs to be said because most kids really love the kids club, but some don't. And if you haven't been on Disney Cruise Line before, you don't know. But our kids are kind of introverted. So they never join in the group games or anything like that. They will do the activities when they make ooze or, oobleck or whatever. And, my daughter really loves, my youngest daughter is really into princesses. She loves the princesses when they come in and tell the stories and things like that. But they don't get when they play Foursquare or the Foursquare equivalent or whatever, they never do any of that kind of stuff.
I was just going to say, I think for kids that might be a little bit shyer and possibly a little bit more introverted, it seems the one thing that does sometimes work is the organized activities. Maybe not necessarily Gaga Ball, but maybe, the arts and crafts that they do or making slime or things like that.
Yes, the arts and crafts are great. The irony is my kids play Gaga Ball. They played it, but they don't want to play at the kids club. I don't know. And I will also say that my kids do really enjoy, my son, can you tell he's into cruise ships? I went in there, I went in with him for an open house and he's like, oh, let me show you how to park the Wonder. And he's like, see, I only got 5%. I only got 5% damage on the Wonder. Because I don't know, it's this game where you're trying to dock or go through icebergs or something, and they count the amount of damage you do to the ship. And he's like, oh, it's only 5%. I was like, 5% isn't great, buddy. No, I'm just kidding. So there are things they enjoy in the kids club. And I will also say that after you've done it a few times, the first time we went on the Dream, of course, our kids were a lot younger. We could only get them in the kids club for 45 minutes, an hour. This time, they know what to expect. They know what they like. They're not dying to go there. Our kids never are dying to go there, except for my son. He's happy to go whenever. They're never dying to go there, but we can be okay, mom and dad are going to go out to dinner tonight. We need you to go to the kids club for 2 hours, and, they can do it just daycare.
I do think this is a good topic. I would like to talk about what you guys did then. Obviously you did the adult dining, but then what did you guys do all day during the days? And I will say for my son, typically, at least what I've heard from my clients, if they're siblings, a lot of times they do better going into the kids clubs together. And then, as you said, if they're really just extroverted, it was because of the pandemic that my son started going to the kids club. So pre-pandemic, he would have been 5 and 6 cruising or whatever. And he would go in for short periods of time, or my mom would be there. So he would just mostly not go in the kids club. Then once the pandemic happened and they had him in those little groups, once cruising restarted, he would go in those little groups and they moved him through activities. So it was perfect because it was just a small group of kids with stuff to do. Then because of that, he became addicted, and he literally could spend the entirety of a day besides the meals in the kids clubs.
Yeah, I think siblings really help. I think video games really helped for my kids. I think another thing that helped was they were just used to it. They knew what to expect. And so I guess one thing I would recommend, if you're not sure whether your kids will like it or not, if you do, I really don't like going to the open houses. But if you go to an open house with the kids, you can kind of explore it with them and maybe find something that they like that they can go to. And so then even if they're not kicking down the door to go to the kids club, they're going to at least have connected with something, and you were able to introduce that to them, and that might go better for them.
So then what did you guys do? You had basically 3 days on the ship where if they weren't spending the entirety of the day together in the kids club, what did you all do together as a family?
Well, one more thing I'll say is, Christy, you always say cruising with friends is a lot of fun. It did help. My friends' kids were a little bit younger, but that did help a little bit too with the kids club. All 5 of them would be together at the same time. Now, this is kind of the first time, but my oldest daughter is 10 now, and they were so into Midship Detective Agency, ridiculously. I would look at my Fitbit and I would be like, how did I do 15,000 steps I'm supposed to be just sitting on a cruise ship all day, and I'm not Steve going down to deck 4 and running in circles, you know. And I've been kidding 15,000, and I was like, oh yeah, I've been doing midship detective with these kids and going back and forth to like the paintings, like deck 7 forward, deck 8 aft, you know. Well, eventually, our kids have gone to the point where my middle one is 7, my oldest is 10. I let them ride attractions at Walt Disney World themselves. Well, once they were used to the ship, we would be like, hey, just go midship detective agency. And we had a third phone, so we'd give them the third phone. Never used it, but it was like, you know, and they all, once we knew, they knew their way back to the room. So those two did that a lot. And that just gave us time, you know, 2-on-1 with the 5-year-old, easy.
While we're on the midship detective agency, I just need you to share the story about when your son and daughter came back to the cabin. What was the highlight, at least to you, of their midship detective agency experience?
Yes, the irony is that they were completely nonplussed by the situation, but they were doing midship detective and they came back to the room, and we were in the room together for like 5 minutes or something. And then like suddenly they were like, oh yeah, by the way, yeah, Ariel was hanging out with us. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, like we ran into Ariel and she was done taking pictures, or this is like exactly my 10-year-old daughter talking. She's like, yeah, I don't know, like I guess she wasn't taking pictures anymore or whatever. And she was like, hey, can I do this with you guys? And we were like, yeah, I guess so. And I'm like, I'm sorry, Ariel, like the Little Mermaid, asked if she could hang out with you guys and do midship detective agency. And I was like, did she? And they were like, yeah, she like went to like a couple paintings with us, and she was like, oh, do you think Fozzie Bear did it? Or she said something like that. And then, you know, eventually she was like, oh, I gotta go now, see you guys later. And I was like, what? Like I was basically like Pixar, it didn't happen. Like it was just, and like this is a 10-year-old talk, and then my 7-year-old, he could not care less that Ariel was hanging out with them. He's not like anti-princess or anything. It's only on Disney Cruise Line could something like that happen. And you know, the other story that I've been telling a lot is Belle was holding court on deck 4 or deck 5, waving down to the atrium like on the first day. And my youngest, who would have cared if Ariel hung out with her and it would have made her year, right, was waiting for a picture. And then Belle started walking away. And I said, oh, I guess Belle's not taking pictures. And then Belle stopped when she heard me say that, took my daughter by the hand, took her to the balcony and held court with her for a little while before we took pictures. So 2 amazing princess experiences on the cruise. And, you know, stuff like that happens all the time on a cruise. And I was talking to Christy about it. Like, I was like, did they see my kids' concierge cards? Maybe. But then also like this stuff just happens randomly. I was talking to Christy about how there were so many new cruisers in our Facebook group. And when I got back, I saw a lot of stories like that. So I don't think it was just because we were concierge. And, you know, who knows if the kids' key cards were even showing anyway.
I think it stands out maybe a little bit more just because during the, I mean, for those who cruised right after the pandemic and you couldn't get close to the characters and they were just, you could get those distant photos, and now it's kind of gone back to normal. And I think these are the experiences that we used to have before. And that's what makes Disney Cruise Line just so magical, is that you can have those experiences that you don't necessarily get in the parks.
What other types of experiences or activities on the cruise ship then did your youngest daughter like to do, especially when the older kids were off doing midship detective agency?
So she liked to do it as well, but of course we always had to do it with her. And so we did some midship detective with her. She did really like the kids' soup pool, much to my chagrin. She was too short for Aqueduct. And so she really enjoyed being in the pool. So we took her there sometimes. Her favorite thing were the shows. She went to all 3 shows. She was the only one, like, yeah, my older kids, I was like, you don't want to see Beauty and the Beast? And they're like, no, midship detective. And so they did midship detective while I rested in the room, and my wife took my daughter to go see Beauty and the Beast. So she really loved all that stuff. And then we'll just casually drop in here that we did have a 1-bedroom suite and it was really comfortable. And so she liked hanging out in there. And also, she's 5. She doesn't normally nap, but at the rate that we had been going, like we made her take quiet time once or twice. those are the kinds of things that she did. My oldest daughter really likes stuff like napkin folding, towel folding, things like that. We drag the 5-year-old along to those things sometimes, but I don't know. She just kind of liked to wander around. And yeah. And then the other thing is she's the only one who went to the royal gathering to meet the princesses. So she would do things like that. Like I would take her to go meet princesses where the other two kids, they would just do whatever they want to do. Like they were not wasting time. Like they did the royal gathering on the Wonder. And my wife and I were like, they're good. Like they don't need to wake up at 9 a.m. to do that.
That makes sense. So one more question on the activities. I find parts of Beauty and the Beast to be a little bit dark. So your 5-year-old, she didn't seem to have any issues then with it. Right?
Yeah, I was shocked because when I went the first time, my now 10-year-old was 5 or 6. And she was covering her eyes through like the wolf part. And so when they came back from Beauty and the Beast, oh, and by the way, we watched the second half of it on the TV. Spoiler alert, those are pre-recorded, the ones on the TV, but still better than nothing. So my older kids and I watched the second half of it while getting ready for dinner. Oh, because we do second dining. I don't know if you want to talk about that, but they came back and I was like, were you scared? And she's like, nope, that was awesome. And I was like, okay. And this is just like another one of those experiences where it's just like the Ariel experience. I can't imagine how that happened, but I guess she wasn't scared by it. So I guess the power of Belle overcame that all.
That's awesome.
It's amazing the different personalities that kids have. What scares one doesn't scare the other. Well, let's stick with food then and turn to that a little bit. We really want to touch on Remy and your experience there, but what was the experience of the dining rooms this time? And why do you guys as a family choose second dining?
We started with second dining on the Wonder in August because first dining was like super crowded. Also, the shows were super crowded. And so second dining was less crowded and we decided to go there. And we realized that if we're going to watch the show anyway, which we plan to do all the time, we're not going to bed that much later. And so what we actually like to do is we shower all the kids before dining, and then we go to second dining, and then they go to bed at 9. Well, they are supposed to go to bed at 9. They're generally chatting. Right now, they all like to sleep in the same room. So they're all generally chatting until like 9:30, 9:45 anyway. So
that's
with second
adorable,
dining,
by the way. Can I just say, super cute?
Yeah, they're very sweet. Because we know they can make it to 9:30, 9:45. And I took the 2 older kids to extended evening hours and we stayed out till 12:20 a.m. So we knew that they could handle it. And we had also learned from when we were on the Wonder, we did it for 6 nights, second dining. So we knew that worked well enough. I can't like figure out how to, it's like whether we have decided what we want to eat before or have no idea. We never get out until like 9:45, no matter what. I know people like can get out pretty quickly. I know this because we're always like one of the last dozen tables in the dining room. But I've decided, that's just how fast our family can go, and it's fine because the kids actually on the Dream they would still like we'd get back to the room, but then we'd hang out for like half an hour or whatever. One night I took my son up to watch the fireworks. He was the only one who went to go see the fireworks, and that was at 10:30, and they were fine. So second dining works for us. I think we prefer it because it should be less crowded if the ship is less crowded. This ship was completely packed, so it wasn't less crowded, but still it works out better. And the kids don't mind waiting until then to eat, so it was fine.
When you get on that first day, it makes it easy too, because you're like, if you get on at 1 or 2 and you eat then, you're not scrambling to turn and eat again at 5. So
yeah, and I also feel like everything feels like a little bit, I don't know, if you're trying to get ready by like 5:45,
feels less rushed.
We're a slow family. Maybe that's why we're the last ones eating. And so, it just works out better for us that way.
So then do you bathe the children after or shower the kids after the show? Do you go to the show first? Because if you're going to the show every night, you have to be ready.
Yep. It's show.
Okay.
Showers. Only the 3 of them need to shower. Like the adults don't shower. Yeah. So show, showers, and then go to dinner, and then straight to bed after. So
you just stay dirty and gross all day. I understand. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So I mean, like we also bathe them in a little extra tomato sauce at dinner, so that keeps them extra clean to go to bed. So it's no problem.
Did you guys have a favorite restaurant on the Dream? Did one stand out over the other?
I think I was partially incepted by one of your guests who said they really liked Enchanted Garden. I think the food was definitely the best there. Our table was kind of not in great view of the fountain, but we really enjoyed our time there. It was the first night. I will also say that like I have zero love for Animator's Palette on the Dream and the Fantasy. Like my first experience with Animator's Palette was on the Wonder, and I thought that was like, I think that was like the first dining room I did too. And so there's all that nostalgia there, and that show is so great. Turtle Talk with Crush, like I can live without that. So not my favorite. And Royal Palace, the food was really good there. A funny note, we were thinking of ordering the pasta. It's like a tarragon pasta. And our server was straight up like, don't order that. You're not going to like it. So yeah. So shout out to Sweetson. He was right, because after he said that, I was like, oh shoot, I ordered that on the Wonder and I did not like that at all. It was like probably one of the least favorite things. So I don't know how he knew what I had ordered the August before, but he was totally right. And actually 2 times this happened at Paulo Brunch. Our waitress there, my wife was thinking about getting the snapper and she's like, don't get that. No one likes it. And so it was funny. It's the first time, at least for us on Disney Cruise Line, where we enjoyed every single thing we ate. So that worked out well.
I always go with my server's advice, man. They seem to steer you well when you're on board. So, Christy, you want to turn to Remy?
So you did Paulo Brunch, and I guess anything else to touch on about Paulo Brunch?
I think the only thing I'll say about Paulo Brunch is that's our first time going with friends. Yeah. And so that was a lot of fun. We could try more food. Just in case people don't know, like I had not realized this, but the buffet has gone away for brunch, which is actually a positive in our mind because it was kind of filler food. And they just give you a menu, and then like for, what is it, $45 now? It's like order whatever you want off this menu. And the service there was top notch. My friend's wife, or also my friend, hopped out to go get Stitch's autograph, which was a mistake. It took her 40 minutes. Also, you guys were talking about the stores being funny. Not only did she take a long time to get Stitch's autograph, but she walked out of the store with a shirt on her shoulder that she hadn't paid for and was almost all the way back to Paula when she remembered. And so walked all the way back to return it, but don't shoplift on the cruise. But obviously they're not very good at catching you because she did that. So she walked all the way back to return it. So anyway, she was gone for like 30, 40 minutes. They did not bring her food out. This was like our 4th course or whatever, but they did not bring her food out until she got back. So they're very attentive to what's going on. I mean, even my friend, like he was eating his waffle or whatever, and then he had gotten his chicken parm, and he's a slow eater sometimes. So he hadn't finished his waffle. So his chicken parm was sitting there for 10 minutes. And the waitress noticed that, the server noticed that and was like, do you want a new one? And he's like, no, like, that's fine. But like, there was that level of service and attention. So it was pretty good.
And then you tried Remy. Was this your first time trying Remy?
Yes. First time in Remy.
So Remy is, I guess, on par with Enchanté, the French higher end restaurant. So adults only dining. What did you think of that? And are you guys, what is the right word?
Fancy eaters.
Are you foodies? Are you into fancier dining, fine dining?
So we definitely were. I'll tell you a funny story. I was not sold on doing Remy just because, it's a 4-night cruise. And I also knew that because we had the 1-bedroom concierge suite, we could do main dining room service. And I kind of wanted to try that for fun. We actually ended up doing that, getting mostly kids' meals, but we did get the lamb shank as well. I think it was Animator's Palette. We were missing Animator's Palette like the second day or whatever. Or no, it was Royal Palace. It was the second Royal Palace. So we got the lamb shank, which was really good. And we had to not eat it because we were going to Remy later, but that's how we fed our kids before we went to Remy. And then the other funny story is I was not sold on it, even though I knew we could do the room service. Because I was like, do I want to do the room service instead? But a buddy of mine who is very into fine dining, like he's the one who I always, like when I go to New York and I want to do either a Michelin star or a Michelin star adjacent restaurant, I'm like, and I don't think we've done a Michelin star in New York, but something nice. I'm like, hey, Jeremy, where should I go? Well, I sent him on the Wish in January, and he messaged me from the Wish, and he was like, I don't know if it's the alcohol speaking, but Enchante feels like on par with Michelin star dining. So after he said that, I was like, you know what? Let's try Remy. And I think he was right. And, it's like one of the best meals we ever had, land or sea, and we've been to so before we had kids, we did a lot more fancy dining. We've been to like Lyon and, various places in France and stuff like that. And so it was an excellent meal. It's a 5 to 7 course, depending on like how you count it. Pre-fee meal. There are 2 set menus, one by the chef who's from Victoria and Albert's and another from a French chef. The bread is amazing. It's like imported from France. So I had to ask our server about it. I was like, you import the starter from France, right? Like my wife makes sourdough, so she has her own starter or whatever. And he's like, oh no, they par bake it in France and then freeze it, ship it to Disney, and then they finish it on the ship. So it is actually like from France. And so I'm still thinking about that bread. That bread was amazing. And so the whole entire meal was great. And then the other funny thing that happened was after the 4 courses that are like, food courses or whatever, they come out with a cheese tray, like a cheese cart. And then they're like, oh, so do you want a cheese course before your dessert? And I was like, oh, I was like so full. I was like, oh, how much? And he was like, oh, it's included. It's included. And I was like, nah, dude, I wasn't asking you how much does it cost. I was like, how much cheese are you going to give me? Because I want some cheese, but there's only so much I can take. Of course, he still gave me way too much cheese. I was like, small slices. So again, amazing service. And it was fun talking to the server about, how he ended up on the Dream. I guess he used to work at a Michelin star restaurant in France, and he said that he much prefers being at Remy. He's like, for all intents and purposes, he was like, Disney Cruise Line guests are much more chill than people in France at the Michelin star restaurants.
I can imagine that.
From the website, basically, Scott Hanel does from Victoria and Albert's is the one that does the American. It's like an American course, right? And then a French course. Is that what it is?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it felt a little bit like Iron Chef, except for without the whole, they all use the same ingredient one. But like they both had a Wagyu beef steak thing. They both had something seafood related, various vegetable courses. Like, so mine, I think I got the French guys thing.
Chef Renaud.
Yeah. And there was like a beet course. I mean, you could not pay me to eat beets at home. And we have a CSA, so we get a lot of beets, and I never eat them. But I actually like, I was like, if I'm going to have to eat a beet, this is how I would like to eat it. The thing that we generally like about fine dining is that when it's done well, and this is going to sound so pretentious, but whatever. Like when it's done well, like you take everything on the plate and you put it all together in like one perfect bite, right? And then when you eat it, like it all works together, like a symphony or whatever. And now I feel like I'm in Ratatouille, but it really does work on the ship as well as, any meal that we've had on land. So we really thought it was worth it. It's a $125 upcharge plus tip. We thought it was worth it. And Christy, I don't know what you're supposed to do, but I ended up tipping on how much I thought the meal should cost. Like if I was on land, because it was like very unclear to me what to do. But we really liked our server too, and we had a lot of great conversation with him. So
yeah, we're gonna have to start asking people, because I don't know the answer to that either. That makes sense.
Palo Brunch is definitely not a $45 meal. Like, that very easy to say. And so it didn't feel right tipping her only as if like I'd gone to eat at like TGI Fridays or Buffalo Wild Wings or something.
Subway.
Exactly.
Subway. Yes. Gosh, I missed my chance.
You did miss your chance. So no, before we leave Remy, there's a very important question I have for you, Joe, because you were messaging me about shoes and about shoes fitting in your luggage. And I said, just wear sneakers or something.
Yes, I did.
Put some shoes on your feet.
No. Thank goodness I did not listen to you. I like,
you said that.
Okay. So I packed a nice shirt and I packed nice pants, and I found room, we travel carry-on only. So we were only 4 carry-ons. I found room for my shoes in the carry-on. So
How did you do that?
We actually had a bag. This is not where my shoes went, but for all the other shoes, we brought like a little canvas bag that is carry-on size. Or I mean, it's not even carry-on size. It's like, I don't even know how to, it's like the bag that you would bring to the gym, but like the cheap one that you're willing to throw out. Like that's where we put all our shoes. And so we had 10 bags total, but it was 5 backpacks, that one bag that had our shoes in it, which is, it's small, and then 4 carry-on rollerboards. And so I fit my shoes into one of those rollerboards, and I was like, Christy, your advice 99% of the time, perfect. But I was so glad I did not listen to you. I still felt underdressed there. Thank goodness I wasn't wearing, it's not even like I got a nice pair of Air Jordans. Like, if you're wearing your Air Force Ones, right? Like you can pull it off, okay? Like the kids do, right? But no, if I had gone with, or God forbid, like flip-flops into Remy's, I would have just
I don't think you can wear flip-flops. There is a rule about flip-flops.
Okay, I would not. I would have just walked out. I would have just been like, forget it. So I was totally glad I brought the shoes.
Who can see them? Isn't there a big, long tablecloth?
It was just so nice in there. Even at Palo, I would probably, if I had to, go in sneakers, but I would prefer not to, especially like it's like when you dress up on the top, you might as well go all the way. I didn't bring my super nice shoes. So, and in fact, my plan originally was to leave these shoes, like throw them out on the trip. We do that sometimes with like old clothes. I did throw out a sweatshirt on the ship, but I decided to keep them because I was like, I can stuff these in my suitcase and they can lose all their shape and I won't feel bad about it. So I'm going to keep these, they're not very well shined shoes, but they're still not sneakers.
So I'm going to put you on the spot as a travel agent. What would your advice be as far as Remy? What night on a 4-night cruise would you recommend it? What worked best for you, or what would you have done if you could have done it?
So we did it on the Castaway Key night. It ended up being okay, but Castaway Key, especially because we had a cabana, it was a long day in a good way, right? But we did not, like, if we had been at Castaway Key not at a cabana, we probably would have come back at like 2 or 3 and had like a lot of time to relax and get ready before dinner. But because like we, were there till the very end, we didn't leave our cabana until like 3:40 or something. It was a little bit of a rush because we fed the kids. And then, we had to get them down to the kids club and then get up. I would have liked to do it maybe on a sea day or Nassau where you're not doing anything. But besides that, the only thing that I just didn't want to miss, now that I think about it, if you've been on the Dream before, I would say skip Turtle Talk with Crush. But I didn't want to skip it because I wanted to be there with my kids when they did it. But we ended up being on a table in the middle anyway, so they didn't get to talk to Crush, so that was a fail. So that's the one that I would happily skip next time. We missed Royal Palace, but actually I like it in there, even though there's no show or whatever. But I think it's more about what did you do during the day? And it ended up being very nice. You have a nice relaxing day at Castaway Key and then finish it off at Remy's. But, if we had been at Nassau, it'd probably been better because, who wants to, we did get off the boat in Nassau to buy hats because my kids lost their hats. But, otherwise we would just stayed on the ship all day.
I can't believe you're as well traveled as you are and you just called the ship a boat.
I mean, I'm not cultured, Christy. I have to ask you whether I should bring shoes to a fancy restaurant. So I don't have any culture.
I'd like to see you in those big red boots that are all the rage right now.
Oh yeah,
you know
like
what I'm talking
How
about.
I Met Your Mother. Yeah.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
That's okay. I'll send you a picture someday. All right. Well, let's run with Castaway. You guys didn't do much in Nassau. Castaway, you guys had the cabana. What made that special, or how did you enjoy that? Was that the first time you guys had a cabana, and having a family together with you? That must have been a nice day.
And also, I feel like when you had me on your podcast years ago to talk about Club Level, you just could not imagine that people would spend extra money on some of these things. And your ways have changed a bit. So I guess I'm curious, like, I know I'm frugal in different ways, but I think you're even more frugal in some ways than I am. So how did you feel that cabana purchase was? Like, are you glad you did it? Can you get used to that side of, that way of being? And then what did you think of the experience?
So a couple things changed. Like, I'm old now. I'm firmly in middle age now. And so like the boarding process on the Dream 5 years ago, and we could still do it now, but we're going to avoid that because like we just don't need that kind of stress in our lives. There's too much stress already. That combined with the fact that like when actually I still walked back to the ship all the way from the cabanas, right? But 5 years ago, like I could easily walk in the August sun to the beach carrying like all the towels, and it was like no thing, right? But I'm at a different stage in my life. Partially, it was selfish because there's a travel agent named C. Pudik or maybe Christy P. who says, you got to try it out. So, you can talk to your clients about it. So, people giving me these terrible ideas to spend money. But I mean, that was honestly part of it. And it was like, let's see what this is like. Let's see what it's like to relax and to not worry about anything. And I will say that pound for pound, the cabana is way more worth it monetarily than concierge level. If you just think about it, like if I could guarantee a cabana like every single time on Castaway Cay, which of course you cannot, right? And why does Lighthouse Point only have 20? But that's the subject for another podcast, right?
Only have add 40, frankly. What are they doing?
Christy freaked out so much that the echo cancellation kicked in. But anyway, yes, I don't know why. But if you could guarantee that every time, I would never sell club level for the rest of my life. When we split it with our family, with the other family, it was like $400 per family. Like that is definitely worth it to me at this stage in my life, at this stage in my career, at this stage in my family's life. It's just a quieter beach. You don't have to worry about like fighting with people. You don't have to worry about like getting the floats or even dragging the floats to where you want to be. Snorkeling equipment and bikes are included. Like I took a little bike ride with my wife, although I managed to pick a bike with a flat tire. So that was pretty dumb on my part. I should have checked, right? It just made everything easier. The food was right there. It's not like soda isn't included on the island anyway, but it was nice to have it. And so we really enjoyed our experience. And then again, like being there it was more fun because we were there with our friends and, the kids were playing in the water together and doing, I don't know what they were doing. Like one kid's on the float and then the other kids are like zooming them around as fast as possible. Like, just kind of try to look away and know that the kids know how to swim. So you're not worried about it, or they're wearing life jackets if they don't.
It's pretty shallow there, right? For families with the younger kids.
Yeah, it is really shallow. Like they could walk out 20, 30 yards and still only be up to their waists. And then it was low tide by the time we left. So it was even like better at that point.
Anything else you want to touch on with Castaway Cay, Joe, as far as what you and the family did?
Just kind of a running theme throughout the cruises. We didn't take as many pictures, which I think was fine. Our friends, that was their first time on a Disney cruise. They wanted to take pictures with all the characters. I think we're kind of also past that point in our lives. I will say that, yes, I thought the cabana was really worth it. But if you haven't been to Castaway Cay before, you can have a great time without getting the cabana. Like it's like I've been to Castaway Cay so many times, I just want to relax. That made it worth it. But if I want to like do every character picture and stuff like that, just like at Disney World, I could have totally spent the entire time at Castaway Cay doing that. I should also note that the weather was picture perfect when we were there as well. So that really helped. So we still have not put our kids into the kids club at Castaway Cay for aforementioned reasons. I'm not sure we're ever going to do that because they still like hanging out with us. Every guest you have come on who is like, oh, I don't see our kid like until except for at dinner time. I'm just like dreading that time when like they don't want to hang out with us anymore. So, we're still soaking it up while we can.
Blake likes to hang out with us, but he also likes the kids clubs. And then when he's in the kids club, it allows us to be able to do nothing and to not entertain. And that's maybe slightly different because we only have the one. So if he's not in the kids club, he's not just playing with another kid. He's playing with us, which is fine, or by himself. But really, if it's a cruise, he's mostly playing with us then at that point. For us, it is a nice little, like we get time with him, but it also is nice to have that little break. And at Castaway, I would say don't shy away from the idea to take your kids and to have them try it out because there's some really cool sand digging and water things that happen in the kids club that they really like. And you can just sit on a beach and stare out or float in the water for a little bit, have a beverage if that's something that interests you, and Again, not engage, not entertain, and you can mix it. You can do both where you're also building sandcastles, but you're also then just kids in the kids club. You get some time to yourself. So consider it next time.
I'm kind of with Joe. Andrew disappeared up until about 2 years ago, and we wouldn't see him at all because he'd be in the kids club. So he made a big group of friends when we were in the Mediterranean one year. And now he just hangs out with us. And actually, I love it because even though I see him every day at home, we don't spend a lot of time together.
Same. Having a 16-year-old who just sort of sits next to you and reads is not the same as entertaining an elementary school age child.
But I guess what I'm just saying is eventually it turns into that. And so what I'm saying is I enjoy it even now where we're able to spend time with them. And yeah, you're right. I mean, it's different having a 3-year-old that you're with the whole day and versus a 16-year-old. You're right.
You're a year and a couple of months from college. So at this point, practically wanting to get them back in the womb, you want to spend so much time with them. So I get it. It's not the same though.
Yes.
Siblings definitely make a big difference, and friends, because I guess the other nice thing about the cabana was we could always see where the kids were because there weren't like a million people in front of us. Like we didn't have to worry about staking out a beach chair at the front of the beach so we could see the water. So we could see all 5 kids at all times. Most of the time there was like an adult just lounging in the water near them, but they're just doing their own thing. So I do think, but even if our friends weren't there, like our kids are pretty self-sufficient, so they can hang out in the water. And, when they start throwing sand at each other, we're within arm's reach. So, which eventually inevitably does happen.
Before we touch on Concierge Joe, was there anything else that you wanted to touch on that we might have missed on this cruise so far?
Yeah, I think Concierge will factor into this, but I will say that I was questioning at the very beginning, and I'll just bring it up here. Muster drill, terrible. Okay. The Walt Disney Theater, and we were on the second floor, was so crowded that we ended up in one of those side, like the room you always want to be able to watch the show in. Yes. Where we're like, you're at the opera with your binoculars or whatever, your fancy on the, where Waldorf and
from the Muppets
Statler sit, we were there, but there weren't even enough seats there. So like we had to stand, we had to let all the women and children with babies sit, and like all the able men and women were standing. And I was like joking with some guy who was standing next to me. I was like, that this is where you come to watch the band play. Let's get back to the Titanic. Like, this is where the band will be playing. Like, there are so many people here. How are we going to get to the lifeboats? Of course, I was like, you probably get there and then they direct you to the lifeboat. So it's not like everyone would actually jam into the theater, but it was not great. And then, it took us like 15 minutes to file out of the theater afterwards.
I don't remember it being that crowded. Like, we've been on sold out ships pre-pandemic. We've been doing the dumb muster drill. How were there so many more people in there that you couldn't even fit?
I don't know, but we couldn't fit. And I looked through the whole balcony. There's not a seat in the house. Okay. The band played on. Right. But anyway, so muster drill was really stressful. And like at that point, I was like, are we going to actually get to relax on this cruise? But to answer your question, Steve, the thing I do want to say is that doing a cruise after Walt Disney World, it did really work the way that we had hoped it had worked, which was we just got to relax so much on the cruise. We did as much as we wanted to do on days we wanted to be busy, and we did as little as we wanted to do on days we wanted to relax. And it was like the perfect complement to, we had a lot of fun at Walt Disney World, but that was go, going at 100 miles per hour, trying to ride as many attractions as we can, fighting the masses. And even though the cruise was super crowded, it still felt way less crowded than Walt Disney World did.
Well, that's like that could be an ending point, but I'm not ready to end. I have more questions. Concierge Lounge. I feel like we have done a lot of concierge episodes, but classic ships, original ships, right? The original 4, if we're going to call it that, Dream Class. What was the lounge experience like? Did you take advantage of the lounge? Did the kids like hang out in there? Like, what did you take advantage of in the lounge?
Oh my gosh. Mickey shorts always playing in the lounge, and our kids obsessed, even though they could watch it at home whenever they want. So they actually like hang out in the lounge and watching Mickey shorts. And then they would just go to our room and turn on channel 15 and keep watching them. So less said about that, the better. But joking aside, yeah, the lounge was really comfortable. We actually got a stateroom very close to it. Although, like I said, we let our older kids have run of the ship and they could have gone to the lounge from wherever we were. It was just right across the hall from us. So it was easy to pop in, pop out, grab something, bring it back to our room. The lounge was very nicely appointed. We're not heavy drinkers, but we would take a drink per day. We tried the champagne, the red wine, white wine, etc. I think I had a glass of Macallan. I'm not a glass. Geez, I would have been under the table. I had a single Macallan neat. And so we really enjoyed it.
We're not heavy drinkers, but I'm going to have this nice, lovely whiskey or whatever it is.
Well, just because you have good taste in drinks doesn't necessarily mean you have to drink a lot of it.
Yes. We drank more than on the cruise, which is basically one serving per day than we would in a typical month. But it was fine. I will say that for breakfast, continental breakfast is very nice at the concierge lounge, but our kids like hot food. So I would walk to Cabanas every day and bring it back to our stateroom. And then, the continental stuff we would get from the concierge lounge and bring it back. But it was never super crowded in there. The only time it's really crowded is during happy hour, right before they take people down to the show. But then as soon as people go down to the show, again, it's not crowded again. So it was really relaxing and nice in there. The concierge attendants were awesome. They were super helpful with anything that we needed to do, from little things like I had to change the credit card on my account to bigger things like, canceling all the alcohol tastings that I had booked. So we didn't do any alcohol tastings. We decided after Disney World, I was like, I'm going to cancel all our appointments except for Remy and Paolo. So
were the concierge hosts, did they engage with the children, and was there coloring up there still and things like that in the lounge?
Oh, I didn't know that I did not see any coloring. They did engage with their kids though. They talked with them whenever, normally when I would be waiting, I would have a kid with me and then they would chat with them about their day and, they would ask them questions. And so they were very friendly and nice with the kids, great with the kids. I mean, everyone on board was amazing with the kids. So yeah, my 10-year-old steals everyone's thunder though. She, how a lot of times the assistant server will do origami for the kids. And so he made a bird the first day for her. And then the second day she came in and she gave him a bird because she knows how to do origami. And then the last night she left 3 towel animals for our stateroom host on the bed for him. And so he just added his to it. So it's funny how they interact. But, and then my son absolutely loved our stateroom host. They were just I don't know what they talk about, but they would just be very happy to see each other every day. And in fact, it was to the point where my son insisted he was the one who wanted to give him the envelope at the end. So that was very cute. So I actually, while we were at Animator's Palette, went all the way back to the room and made sure that the host was still going to be around just in case we didn't see him in the morning. So my son could say bye to him and give him his thank you.
I'm usually down in the closet with the brooms with Sorcerer Mickey when I'm on the ship. What was it like having a 1-bedroom, suite up in concierge? What were some of the things that you enjoyed about that?
It's a really well-designed suite. If you add up, I think it's 564 square feet. If you add up to Deluxe Family Ocean View Veranda staterooms, which is probably what we would have gotten if we hadn't had the suite, it's actually more space. But the way that it's designed, it's just very comfortable for us to hang out as a family. We can close the privacy doors when we need to close the privacy doors. I slept on all 3 beds in the suite. So there's the master queen bed. The sofa queen bed is also very nice and comfortable. Actually, I spent most of my nights there. And one night I spent on the Murphy bed, which comes down. Our family, they like to sleep together and it's musical beds whenever we're on vacation. I never sleep with my wife, bottom line, on vacation. So I got to try all 3 beds. They were all very comfortable. The table was very nice. The kids would sit there. My kids like to draw. And also my oldest was I don't know if you'd call it journaling, but she was drawing what had happened on the trip in a little notebook that she has. And so it was really nice to have the table for that. And it's still 2 bathrooms, just like we would have had if we had had 2 staterooms. So that wasn't very different, but overall it was just really, I don't know, it's just well designed. It's tough to say, like, it's better designed than the apartment we live in at home. It feels more comfortable, and it's more square feet where we are. Like, effectively, we have a upstairs, but effectively we live in 1,000 square feet, but it is much more comfortable, that 560 square feet, the way it was designed. And Christy, I know you talk about the sheets in the bed. We flipped the mattress over before we left to take a picture of the thing on the mattress, but I still think it's not purchasable unless we like buy in bulk for a cruise ship or something like that, for a cruise boat, Christy.
And delete this episode. Just kidding. Why'd you have to be snarky at the end? It was such a lovely little bit of sharing you just had with us.
I don't know. I think my son still calls it a boat all the time. Actually, maybe he would correct me, but I don't know why I call it a boat.
I see a future captain in your son, to be honest. He could be
I believe it.
He could be captaining the Disney treasure here someday. So he
would love to be at the helm of some form of transportation, land, sea, or air. We'll find out.
I love that. Okay, I got a couple quick hits here for you. Just quick answers here. Aqueduct or laying by the pool with a drink?
Oh, aqueduct. I don't even drink that much. So laying by the pool, it's going to be crowded no matter what. So everyone always says go during first dining, which is a good time to go. But we went the first night. It was a little crowded, like 10, 15 minute waits. The last night we went during first dining. We went during Beauty and the Beast. My kids did that and Midship Detective. Like, instead of going to Beauty and the Beast, it was a walk on. So they went like 3 times, before they got too cold. So I'll go aqueduct over chilling by the pool.
All right. Go-to food for breakfast at Cabanas if you guys eat there.
Bacon.
Bacon.
Way too much bacon. More bacon than one should eat.
Okay, you guys don't drink as much, but do you have a favorite lounge or place just you and your wife can kind of hang out? It doesn't have to be a lounge. It could be any place on the ship.
Yeah. When I was listening to Steve from Tampa, I was like, besides Remy and Paolo, like, we did not spend time to just ourselves. We were always with a kid, which was fine. I think Remy and Paolo was good enough. You know what I really would like to try? Whatever the lounge is called between Remy and Paolo, I would have really liked to do that. That's probably the one I would pick, even though I haven't been there. What's it called?
Meridian.
Yes. Yeah.
It's awesome because it's like travel themed too. Like, the benches or the seats you sit in, or they're kind of made out of, it looks like old suitcases, like with the straps and everything. It's really cool with the leather.
Beautiful in there. Yeah.
Yeah. Elemis or H2O?
It's funny. I asked, I'm such a loser. I asked the stateroom host to replace one of the bathroom stuff with H2O just so I could compare, like, and have them like, side by side.
So,
and I will say that probably for like normal use, I would prefer H2O. Like, I'm still taking H2O bottles whenever I stay deluxe at Walt Disney World, and storing them for the long winter when H2O finally does stop producing stuff. But the Element stuff was really nice as well. And so I would say H2O, but don't sleep on Elements either.
Okay. And last one. Would you say your kids are more excited to go to the parks nowadays or on a Disney cruise?
I don't want to answer this question. It makes me sad. It's Disney cruise. Yeah.
Yes.
We asked them after. And like, to a child, they all said the cruise. And I was just like, okay, we're not going to be Disney Cruise Line Deciphered. All right, kids. So,
well, you can still do both. So, Christy, any final questions?
Nope. I think that's a good ending point.
Yeah, well, I do want to throw it out here too. Joe, you're a travel agent. And if people want to use your services, how could they get a hold of you? And then also I want to give you a chance to plug your show, Disney Deciphered, which I absolutely love. I listen to every episode when it comes out each week with you and Leslie. So
Disney Deciphered episodes are typically the opposite of this episode. We try to keep things as not tangent filled as possible. Our goal is to save you money, time, and stress on your Disney vacation, mostly Walt Disney World, but we also touch on Disneyland and Disney Cruise Line. And don't book a trip with me if you're listening to this podcast regularly, Christy at packyourpixiedust.com. But if you're a regular Disney Deciphered listener, you already know how to find me.
I love it. And I know that you guys all kind of work together to help each other out. And that's so cool to see. So Joe, it's been too long. It's been great talking with you tonight. And thank you so much for all the years being a supporter of our show. And thank you for what you do with the podcasting and the Disney community as well with Disney Deciphered, you and Leslie. So thanks for coming on tonight.
Likewise, always a pleasure to talk to you guys. And if you're a listener still listening to this, thank you for letting us drone on for so long.
But I do have one last question. What's next for you, Joe? Where can people find you, whether it's in the parks or out on a cruise?
I should be heading back to the parks in April, hopefully to check out Tron. We have the Wish booked for August just to try it out. I'm not sure if we'll get on that ship or not. It's going to be I know I could just take 2 kids and it'd be fine, but can I take 3 kids and will it be fine? Or can I convince my wife to go? We'll see. But I do want to try out the Disney Wish sometime soon.
And we look forward to hearing your experience with that. But I think I do have one more question we have to end on. What is your Disney Cruise Line do or don't?
Oh, good one.
To copy from another great podcast, Joe's podcast, for people who don't know.
My Disney do is always to board late, but we've already said that. So I will say that my Disney don't is the same as my Disney don't is generally for the parks, which is don't try to do everything. Don't let FOMO get the best of you. Mm-hmm. There's so much to do on Disney Cruise Line. Like you asked the question about the lounges, Steve. My wife and I still have yet to go to Pink or any of those lounges just to hang out. There's still so much more for us to explore on Disney Cruise Line. And, the way you think about it is if you are lucky enough to get the chance, you can try that on your next cruise. And then even if you don't, if you're doing other things, you're probably enjoying them enough that you don't have to worry about the things that you miss. So my Disney don't try to cram it all in. Just relax. That's the beauty of Disney Cruise Line and probably why my kids like it better, because I'm not putting them on the forced march of happiness. Another Disney Deciphered meme.
I was actually gonna say that at some point today, and that's awesome.
Well, thanks again, Joe, for coming on. I really appreciate as I said earlier, thank you so much for all the support you've given our show over the years. Thanks for coming on tonight and talking about your experiences on the beautiful Disney Dream. And why don't you come out and sail with us, and we'll do a huge Friends cruise when the Disney Treasure comes out, and we'll try and put something together.
Let's do it. My youngest, I don't know why, she's princess obsessed, but she really wants to ride the Treasure. I'm like, the Wish is the princess one, but whatever. We'll do them both.
I love it. Yeah. Diversity.
I love it. I like this plan too.
Yeah. All right, Joe, all the best to you and the family, and we will talk to you soon on the DCL podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks.
The DCL podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.